Hey guys, I hope you're good. This is Max from MHS Prod, and today we will do an incredible tutorial. Do you love growing systems? Oh, 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 oh. Yes, it was one of the things that pushed me into learning Houdini. It's so nice. See, you will be able to create all those super cool effects and growing systems. It looks really organic, and here you can see that we are just starting from scratch, from a sphere, and it's growing in a super organic way. Oh, wow! So today we will learn how to create this super nice effect, and I'm super excited, so I will push really on my key so you are able to see what we can do with this effect. So we will learn to create this, and it will be a beginner tutorial. So if you have only basis on or no basis in Houdini, you will be able to follow this tutorial, and we will shade it and render it into Octane Render for Cinema 4D. Just one thing before starting this tutorial, I invite you to join our group called Motion Designers Community. You will be able to share your super nice work there. Wow! You will be able to share your renders or talk about VAT. And if you're angry about VAT, take a gun and shot in the air. I'm in front, so I don't have a gun, I'm shooting water. And now my keyboard is full of water. If you are curious about learning Houdini, you can also check out our Patreon. We made lessons for people coming from Cinema 4D and have no basis at all, even in coding. So we already have 5 hours of training. Oh, wow! Now you want to learn a lot of incredible tutorials about how to use Houdini in combination with Cinema 4D to improve your creativity. And I also have a talk on the channel if you are curious about it, so feel free to check out the offers. I've added a bit more offers, so you can join the $20 at $9 if you are seeing this video now. If you're in the future, you maybe don't have this offer. And we also have offer where you can get repost on our community page, Motion Designers. Enough talking, now let's jump into the software and disable this really disturbing ad. Let's go. Okay, now let's start to create something. Let's create a sphere. Let's double click and let's change this sphere into a polygon. Let's have a frequency of 12 and let's duplicate it by drag and drop it having the Alt key pushed. Let's make this sphere a little bit smaller, maybe 0.02. And I want to copy this little sphere on this bigger sphere. I will use a scatter node. So let's take a scatter. And scatter will scatter points all over my sphere. You can see here I have a bunch of parameters to control the points scattered. Let's stick to basic parameter. Now I will use another node called copy to points, and I will be able here to plug primitives to copy, and here the target points. So now I have a bunch of little spheres. But the thing is, it could be a bit slow because I have a bunch of geometry, because later I will be modifying this object. So I want to have something really fast because I will only have instances of one object. So let's click on copy to points and let's tick back an instance. I will have something definitely much more faster. Right now I want to create something. So I want to create this little sphere growing over time. So I can create this. We will use an attribute called pscale. So let's see what we can do, for example, with pscale. Don't do that, it's just to show you what we can do. So here I have a bunch of attributes, and here pscale attribute will allow me, for example, to have a different size, like a random. So that's not what I want to do, but I want to use the pscale attribute to create a value growing over time. And how we can create something changing over time, we will use a node called Solver. And the Solver will allow us to take the previous frame and recreate each frame a new operation. So let's use an attribute VAP, and let's plug the previous frame in the input number 1. Now let's dive into attribute VAP, and you can see here I have a bunch of inputs and here outputs, and you can find some attribute, for example CD, UV, and but I can find p-scale, but I can import any kind of attribute using a node called bind. So I will use bind, and here I will type p-scale. So now I'm creating an entry for p-scale. I want to add to this p-scale value a constant value over time. So let's simply add a node add. Let's take our value and let's create a constant. Plug the constant into the input 2 and let's type, for example, 0.02. And now I want to export this value as the new p-scale. So again, type bind, but this time we will choose bind export. So here I will be able to export the new p-scale. You can understand this. It could be, for example, the p-scale plugged here, but you see in the output I have only like 5 default attributes. So I can also choose the attributes here by using bind and bind export. So each previous frame, it will do the same operation and saving in memory the previous state. So each frame, it will be growing. So let's see what's going on right now. Yes, that's the beginning of a growing effect. And you can see that it's not playing real time, it's super fast because Houdini is playing super fast things. So if I want to have real time, I can toggle here and see it real time. So it could be a bit slow, but we will be able to tweak it a bit later. Right now, I want to add more variation to it. So let's create a merge node and just plug this and plug this. So let's plug the copy to points and let's plug the sphere. So I will have my small sphere growing on the bigger sphere. That's the way to get to object merge. And I want to create something different. For example, I want to scatter points, but I don't want to scatter points on all the sphere. So I will use another point VOP. Let's plug it here. And for example, we will call it color choose. You can also change colors of the node here. You can change how they look here. And you can also add notes. If you are starting Houdini, it could be nice to add a little note and, for example, type why you're using this node. Okay, so let's dive into it. And this time we will not use bind. We will just use turbulent noise. And in my turbulent noise, I will plug P into pulse and noise into CD. In my turbulent noise, I will promote all the parameters, so it will allow me to control them in this level. So let's go here. Let's right click. Let's go and go to Vex VOP option and click create input parameters. And you see, if I double click, it's creating a bunch of little parameter nodes. You can also create a parameter node by going here and plug it, but it's faster to use the right click Vex VOP and create parameter option. And I can also middle click somewhere, for example, and I can also promote the parameter. So right now, if I choose to see this node, I see that color are here, and at this level I have control on my noise. So I will change the amplitude to have something with a lot of contrast. I will have a lot of zero roughness, so it will be a lot of contrast. And now I want to delete these polygons based on the color. So I will use a node called delete. So I'm plugging the node here, And the node delete is pretty nice because I can delete, for example, to delete node by pattern, by range, or by expression. And by expression, I can use, for example, the expression $CR and choose a value, for example, like 0.1 or 0.5. So each time the value of this will be superior to the red channel, it will delete. So each black area will be deleted. So I can control a bit what I can delete like this. And again, I can go back on my VOP node and choose to change, for example, the frequency. I can middle click and drag and drop here to choose different areas. So I'm happy because now I will scatter object, but just in not everywhere. So if I'm coming back to the merge and see what's going on, I will have object growing. If it's growing everywhere, I need to go in the solver and hit reset simulation. So now I can see my real effect. So do not hesitate to reset the simulation. And now I want to have something a bit more funky because that's just simple sphere. I want to have something more complex. So let's go here. I have my leader sphere, but I want to have something more complex. We will display this object using mountain. And mountain is pretty nice because I will be able to change the size of this object and create some really strange forms. Whoa. And to me it's pretty nice. It doesn't matter if I have something not that precise. Just play with the value to create something you like. Maybe it could be something like that. And now you see that I have this object that will grow everywhere, but it's all growing in the same orientation. So I want to change the orientation. In Houdini there's a lot of ways to change orientation, but I found one really cool way to change the orientation of an object, and it's a technique by Johnny Farmfield. So I will unpack my objects. I will use the node assemble because in assemble there's the ability to unpack the object directly. So use assemble. Let's click on create packed geometry. So here I'm creating packed geometry. Now I will use transform pieces node. So let's connect the transform pieces node here. And now I will use an attribute randomize. In attribute randomize, I will plug this here, and I will plug this here. Here, I will choose the attribute orient, and I will choose 4 dimension and select different values from -1 to 1. In Houdini, you will learn that orient is an attribute that works with quaternions, so you need to have 4 dimensions for the attribute orient. Okay, so now let's go here, and you see it's making nothing. But again, if I go back and I plug again the assemble here in the transform piece in the rest point, you see that I have a lot of variation now. So I'm just super happy. I need now to unpack because I've created packed geometry. And now I have my effects. Right now it's super slow, so I can go back into my solver, attribute VOP, and for example change this value, for example 0.04. And I can also use a node called transform here, and I'm able to change the uniform scale of the object. So if I want to have something 2 times bigger, I can use this node. So right now let's see what's going on. It's pretty nice. Maybe I will need to have even something bigger. Yeah, it's creating something pretty nice and growing. So now, how do I create this growing effect? I will use VDBs. So let's create a VDB from polygons. Let's plug it here and let's see what's going on. It could be taking a bit of time, but do not worry, it's normal because each VDB operation can take a bit of time. But when you will export the final result, you will be able to get one ABC sequence. So it will be loading pretty fast. So let's change the voxel size and find something nice. It's still not what I want. Maybe let's try 0.02. Yeah, we are near the effect I want. Maybe 0.01 will be the one. Okay, it's pretty great for what I want. So now I can use VDB convert and choose to convert my object back to polygons. So polygons, or I can choose polygon soup. And you see, it's all polygons. And I have a growing effect based on the instanced geometry. So I can also change this geometry or change the object here. And that's the power of Houdini. Now, once you've built this effect, you are able to apply it to any object. So now I can also use, for example, a smooth node. And I can smooth a bit my polygons. Just plug it here. And I can have bigger value to see what's going on. Yeah, it's moving a bit the result. I can bypass a node by clicking here. I'm losing a bit of detail, so maybe I will just go to 25. And now the magic of Houdini. At any time, for example, I can import a file or change this object. Let's try with a torus and see what's going on. Let's go back to the beginning. And maybe let's deactivate our VDB at the moment and just focus on the merge. So let's change it, and I can even like maybe create a switch object. We have different objects. Switch. So you see now I have the effects here, but if I'm going to the switch and I select the input 1, maybe change a bit the rows and columns and see what's going on. Yeah, the effect is taking place on the other object. Again, let's try another thing. Test geometry could be one of your objects. Let's plug it in the switch. Let's change the input of the switch. Let's go back to the beginning and see what's going on. Yeah, perfect. It's going. And again, I can just check what's going on. So once you've built something in Houdini, you are able to apply it to any kind of object. And now I can also change the input here and use any kind of object, and it's going to be super nice to create a lot of growing effect and structures. So I hope you guys have fun, and once you've made this, just go to File, Export, Alembic, Export Frame Range, and choose a path to export your sequence. So now I will import something already made. So we will not lose time exporting because it could take few minutes to hours and hours if you are doing something really complex, but here I have my effect, and you see it's pretty interesting, and I really love it because here I can see that I don't have the effect, and it's startly growing from nothing to something better. So I will just show you how I've shaded to create the result we saw in the beginning. So I use Octane Render, but you can use any kind of renderer. I will use a small program called Afterburner. And Afterburner allow me to use my fans and decrease the temperature of my cards. They are actually running pretty hot because it's actually summer in Paris, and we have a heat wave there, so I'm really crazy. That's why I have the gun, the water gun. Okay, so let's try to create something interesting. I will go for something really simple, but let's create an HDRI environment, and I will use the plugin HDRI Link. It will allow me to go faster and choose sky. So maybe I will go for Pro Studio Skies and use the blue and red. Yep. Now I will use a texture environment and select it into visible environment and change it from for something black. Let's change a bit the rotation to have something maybe more interesting. Just play to find the right shadow values and get something interesting. That's nice. I love this balance. I can also change the intensity, maybe have something brighter. Now let's focus on the material. So let's create material. Let's create a glossy material, and into the node editor I will use a mix material, and I will create another octane material here, and yeah, let's drag and drop the mix here. For this material I will change, for example, the color to something maybe metallic. So let's disable the diffuse channel. Let's go to index. So I need to go into glossy material, index, put the index into 1, so it's like a chrome, and add a bit of roughness, maybe like that, I don't know. Maybe change the specular color to have something darker. And here, for example, I can maybe even duplicate this one and plug it here, and I can change the color, for example, for something like gold. And I want to have only a material in certain area, so I will use the node called dirt. And dirt is pretty nice because I will be able to get maybe I will change that to something really visible, and again I will invert the materials because the dirt will apply the second material in the little area. Let's invert normal, and let's add more effect. So you see I start to see the gold effect, maybe radius 2. It's pretty nice. So here the gold, I can choose something maybe more white. It's creating those nice white areas like that, and it's a bit the process that I've used to show you the image in the beginning Dropbox. I'm just finding back the image Houdini, yeah, like this. So I've shaded it a bit better. You see, put a bit of more time into it, but it's pretty nice, I guess. Now the only thing you need to do is add an environment, add a camera, and you can create a pretty nice render now. Of course, add post-processing if you are posting to Instagram. Everybody love post-processing. You are not a great artist if you are not using post-processing. And you can also create, for example, macro details. I love to have like a lot of depth of field, so you can really create interesting effects and see your object growing, so from nothing to something more interesting in terms of shapes. Of course, it's taking a bit of time to update, but that's the price of using EV geometry in Octane. But the final result is really interesting to me and really nice. So I hope you guys enjoy this little growth effect tutorial in Houdini. I hope it will push you to go further, and I can show you a few other things that you can create in Houdini. For example, this is part of another tutorial, and you can create a lot of super nice structures and things. This is other things you can do using Houdini VDBs. You can create a lot of interesting structures like that. Yeah, I really love Houdini. It's just super powerful to create all those super organic shapes really easily. I really love Houdini for that, because you are able to create organic looking things in minutes, and yeah, you can't achieve this effect in Cinema 4D. So that's why I love Houdini, for all the power you can get in your creativity for abstract stuff, and even for more advanced stuff and animation stuff. So if you want to learn with me, do not hesitate to join our Patreon, and we have the offer here, community builders. So thank you guys for watching this video, and see you next time.